Was cricket always your number one sport?
I have a passion for basketball, passion and love for basketball.
How important in terms of your cricketing development was the late Ezra Moseley?
Yeah, he was outstanding in my development. I owe quite a bit to him. I always tell people that you could be as talented as you want. You can have, you can be extremely strong, fit, powerful, explosive. But if you can't have that mental capacity to push you through on the competitive stage, to me, all of it is not worth having.
How do you look at franchise cricket as a player?
It's great. You look at IPL cricket, for instance, you've seen the rise of Indian cricket, and I think that's just merely through IPL cricket and them having that international exposure. It's arguably the biggest domestic tournament going on. I, however, fear that international cricket could be under some pressure if these domestic leagues continue to pop up and take precedent. There's obviously a lot of money involved in it, and a lot of territories can't match the monetary support that these leagues present.
And the Test debut in 2014, what did it mean to you to be given that baggy maroon hat?
Well, yeah, it was one of the best days of my life.
At the age of 23, you got made the skipper.
I was walking into something that I probably didn't have a deeper understanding of what it entailed. Jimmy Anderson, I remember we were playing against Jimmy at Lord's when Jimmy got his 500th Test wicket, and it was one of the most amazing things for me. He was on 499 and I was batting with the Devendra Bishu, and I just didn't want to be part of a highlight reel for the rest of my life. So definitely an Indian number one side in the world for me, because I think all around when you look at them through all three formats, they're the most consistent side.
2019, you got that double century in a winning series against England. How was that as a special moment?
Up there with the best, that Northants experience and then my Big Bash experience with Sydney Sixers were the two best domestic experiences I would have had.
The Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Jason Holder. Jace, how's things going?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Good to be here on the show, man. And yeah, looking forward to some good weather and some good cricket in the next couple of days against South Africa.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So let's take it all the way back with yourself. You're born in Barbados. Was cricket always your number one sport as a youngster?
Born and bred in Barbados. When I was a youngster, pretty much tried everything. Yeah, I have a passion for basketball, passion and love for basketball. Yeah, it was more or less played within my family as well. A couple of my uncles played, even my brother played basketball as well too. So I kind of deemed as an outsider with cricket, being the only family member who took interest to cricket. But yeah, I had strong competition growing up with basketball. I did a bit of track and field as well. I pretty much tried everything in primary school into secondary school. But then as I got a little bit more serious in cricket, obviously I had to give up something to put more time into cricket. So yeah, my full focus went into cricket.
Yeah, I was reading. So your brother Andre got a scholarship to play basketball in the US.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was in the US for roughly about 6 years, graduated and then came back home.
And then for your schooling, how important in terms of your cricketing development was the late Ezra Moseley?
Yeah, Ezra Moseley played an integral part in my development. We first came together when I was in third form at the St. Michael's School. We both came to the school at the same time because I went to passed for Llewellyn Secondary School and then was transferred to St. Michael's School after the industrial issues at Llewellyn. So, Mr. Moseley and I came together at the same time, and yeah, he was outstanding in my development. I owe quite a bit to him. He was one of those disciplinarians who taught us how to play the game the right way, for the right reasons. We also improved a lot and learned the game and had fun learning the game. I think that's something that would always stick with me with Mr. Moseley. A hard task man at that. We knew he was very, very, he didn't toe the line. And that's the best way to put it. He was very, very straightforward, but a wonderful advocate for the game and a guy who really put us first and put our development first.
As a youngster, were you working a lot on your fundamentals, technical fundamentals, or was it a case where you were just enjoying the game and seeing where it went?
I would say probably up to primary school. It's pretty much enjoyment. You don't really get that deep into the technical aspects of the game. But more or less, when I really met up with Mr. Mosley in third form, it's really started to get a little bit deeper into the technical side of things. Bowling was always about skill for me. Mr. Mosley was one of the most skillful bowlers in his time. And one of the things he was really big on is swing. So his thing was, or his philosophy, sorry, was to make sure that all of our bowlers, are skillful enough to execute any plan, given by any captain, and we work tirelessly and endlessly on swing. So yeah, I owe a lot of my skill to him. He taught me everything, in swing, out swing, reverse swing. And yeah, these are obviously traits that I use up to today. But yeah, I would say from third form is where we really got technical in terms of batting and bowling, and you tend to understand the finer details about the game then.
When did you get into the Barbados system? When did they spot your talents and growing through the ranks as well? Did you
Well,
always want to become a professional cricketer? Was that always the aim eventually, as you were
well,
developing through?
well. For me, I was fortunate. I came straight through the system. Played on the 13, 15, 17, 19 for Barbados. Then I went on to the West Indies A team. As a part of the academy team, and then went into the West Indies senior team. So pretty much was always there and thereabouts in terms of regional cricket from a very young age. Um, and yeah, like I pretty much just propelled myself into the West Indies team. Then I think the defining moment for me about being a professional cricketer was when my club, the Wanderers Cricket Club, we had a tour to the UK. We actually went up to Kent first for the first two trips, and then the last trip was up to Sussex. But those three trips in a 6 year span for me was a defining moment, which really pushed me into the professional cricket side. Yeah, and I owe them a lot, and to this day I'm still a member of the Wanderers Cricket Club. And I actually met up with one of the integral members in putting the tour on to last week, or yeah, the last week, before he came over here to St. Lucia, and it was really good to catch up with him, and we kind of reminisce about the days of the junior program, where it was back then as to where it's developed now. So yeah, I would say that those three trips really pushed me towards wanting to become a professional cricketer, and yeah, I never really looked back from there.
And then 2010, you played in the Under-19 World Cup. What other players came through with you in that tournament? And obviously, for you personally, you're the leading wicket taker for the West Indies in that tournament. A good grounding, good development stage in your career, that tournament?
Yeah, definitely. When I played the Youth World Cup, I honestly didn't know what to expect. I know it's like a place where a lot of these successful international cricketers have come from. But yeah, I went into the World Cup not knowing what to expect. I wasn't quite sure if I was world class or cut above the group. And that was something that was always in the back of my mind. How do I separate myself from the group? And fortunately for us in the West Indies, we had quite a few players coming through from that team. You've got Shane Durrich, Craig Brathwaite, Jamal Warrican, Jermaine Blackwood, Evan Lewis. Um, yeah, I think that those are the guys who would have went on to represent the West Indies team. But more or less, all the guys in that team went on to play first class cricket as well. So yeah, that was kind of like a stepping stone, obviously into the West Indies team, and the World Cup that I had really pushed me into the Barbados first class team, and then onwards into the West Indies A team, and I think that was the defining moment in my career where people believed that I could play international cricket. Obviously, it was the highest wicket taker for West Indies in the tournament, and I guess it's not just the way he got wickets; it is in the magnitude of the games. I was actually talking to our head coach Andre Coley, who's here with us here in St. Lucia, and we were discussing the World Cup and how it went, and it was kind of topsy turvy at certain times of the tournament, and we weren't quite sure how we stayed after the preliminary phase. So it was really good to be a integral part of that third place achievement in that tournament. And yeah, again, look back on it now, and all I can do is smile. We came through, but obviously a whole host of cricketers who are now playing international cricket.
Then you were called up to the West Indies one-day squad. Was it in 2012, the Bangladesh tour, in place of an injured Tino Best? You didn't make it into the first team at that stage. You made your debut against Australia, was it a year later? Do you think that initial being called up, being amongst the group, being around them, just made that transition a little bit easier up to the highest level?
Yeah. After I left the high performance center, I pretty much found myself like a lull in my career where I couldn't quite kick on and like cement my place into a Barbados team. I had played a few A-team series before that, and it just wasn't happening at the speed I wanted it to happen at. And I had a really, really good series against Bangladesh, and I had only been selected for the one-day segment of that series. And I think from there on, I guess is where people would have seen a spot for me, or a possible spot for me in the West Indies one-day team. Yes, as you said, I was then called to replace Tino Best in 2012 up to Bangladesh, which was my first tour for West Indies. I didn't play in Bangladesh, but then the next tour after that was Australia, which was February in 2013, which is where I made my debut. And yeah, I've been so lucky and so fortunate to be still around. I don't think I've ever been left out of the West Indies team since then. And obviously came into Test cricket as well too, and I've elevated myself into T20 cricket as well. So, look, I'm really proud of what I've achieved so far in international cricket. I still think the best is yet to come for me. I'm not at that stage where I'm more or less a seasoned campaigner now, even although I've come into the international team so young. But I think the next 3-4 years for me could arguably be my best years, and I'm really looking forward to going out there and doing some really special things.
You mentioned as you're just making that transition, there was a slight lull in your performances. Any tips when you reflect back? Any tips you can give youngsters, perhaps young professionals, perhaps experiencing a similar thing, that you would advise them, having gone through that experience?
Yeah, funny enough, we had a sports psychologist by the name of Simon Grayson in the High Performance Center. And for the 2 years I was in the High Performance Center, outside of the compulsory sessions which we had as a group, I never would have tapped into his resources on a one-on-one basis. I guess I was ignorant to the fact I didn't understand what he did and his work. And for me, I just didn't feel as though it's something I needed. But after the 2-year stint and then having that love, Simon was actually based in Barbados, and Simon and I got together. I mean, I felt as though like it was more or less a last resort, but a definite lifeline that I could obviously turn to. So I didn't think it was going to do any detriment to me. So I reached out to him, and we connected, and it was the best couple of weeks that I would have had. And all it was is for me just to understand myself, understand how I react under stress, understand what gets the best out of me, understand, different moods, different emotions, and just knowing how to control that all. And my only advice to any player who would find himself in a similar situation is to tap into your resources around you, and dig a little deeper into the mental aspect of the game. I will always tell people that you could be as talented as you want. You can have, you could be extremely strong, fit, powerful, explosive. But if you can't have that mental capacity to push you through on the competitive stage, to me, all of it is not worth having, to be honest. So I would just encourage anyone to tap into the mental skills and just try to understand themselves more, so they can know how to perform under pressure. And that's how great athletes perform, under pressure, when the chips are down, when the back's against the wall, they want to be remembered for those kind of innings, those kind of big moments. And yeah, that's my simple advice.
And then following your ODI debut, you got picked up in the IPL for Chennai. Just a word on franchise cricket as a whole. Obviously, you played for several teams in the IPL, Big Bash for Sydney, CPL for the Tridents, Barbados. In the UK, we've got the 100 coming up at the time of recording. It's a month or so away. People have got their opinions. But as a player yourself, who've been in amongst it, how do you reflect? How do you look at franchise cricket as a player?
Well, I think is great. It's great for a number of reasons. I think it brings a faster rate of development for the actual league one, and then for the actual structure or the system that has implemented the league. You look at IPL cricket, for instance. You've seen the rise of Indian cricket, and I think that's just merely through IPL cricket and them having that international exposure. It's arguably the biggest domestic tournament going on at present. Everybody's interested to see how the 100 ball goes. I think that would be a great spectacle as well. And no doubt, if England could attract more and more outstanding overseas players, their cricket is going to obviously keep skyrocketing as well too. I, however, fear that international cricket could be under some pressure if these domestic leagues continue to pop up and take precedence. There's obviously a lot of money involved in it, and a lot of territories can't match the monetary support that these leagues present. So, my fear sometimes is that more and more players may decide to play more domestic cricket. I think the only way that we can keep international cricket as exciting as it probably is at present is to continue to pump money into it. Boards need to be supported where you can have that financial support to players, and players wouldn't have the dilemma in whether they want to play for a franchise or the international team. But I think it breeds well for the game itself. People would argue that it's so much T20 cricket and players lose interest in Test cricket and probably don't have any interest in one-day cricket. I beg to differ. I believe if you continue to see players reach the sky or reach their limits within T20 leagues, then they'll want to push their skills in a different way. And everybody's always said, Test cricket is the pinnacle, and that's the best way to do it. I still believe there are a lot of West Indian players, particularly, who are very interested in playing Test cricket, and I think that will continue to grow. But we've got to be able to support the initiative here in the Caribbean. We can't let CPL take precedence over international cricket, but we've got to find a way to improve our structure, improve our systems, improve our cricket in general, so that interest could continue to breed in years to come.
And then the Test debut in 2014, what did it mean to you to be given that baggy maroon hat? And who presented you with your cap on the day against New Zealand?
Well, yeah, it was one of the best days of my life. Presented to me by Courtney Walsh, obviously in front of my home crowd in Kensington Oval. And I guess Kensington is like a fortress for me, man. Whenever I turn up at Kensington Oval, I always tend to get a really good performance together. So it was a dream come true. I think growing up, there was never any IPL cricket. There was never any T20 cricket, no franchise cricket. So as a youngster growing up, you only wanted to play for West Indies, and to be given my Test cap, was a proud day, a day that I would never forget. It's somehow one of those days where you always compare it to your one-day cap, and people don't value a one-day cap as much as a Test cap. But I was that my one day debut was my first international experience, so it's kind of hard to look past, taking my cap from Sir Richie Richardson at the Western Australia ground in Perth. But yeah, I guess the Test cap at home in front of your crowd, your home fans is probably gonna tip that one. But yeah, all great feelings.
And soon after, at the age of 23, you got made the skipper. One day Test format. As a 23-year-old, from a pressure perspective, must have been huge as well. Yeah,
I mean, I was walking into something that I probably didn't have a deeper understanding of what it entailed. I knew obviously what captaincy was all about because I've captained before, but to captain your country or your region was far deeper than I imagined. Maybe if I knew what it entailed now back then, I probably wouldn't have gone into it. But it is something that I would never ever regret doing. It's taught me so much. Is grown me into the individual I am today, and I've learned so much and I've built so much character through captaincy. There've been some highs. There've obviously been a lot of lows, and again, it's character building. And I don't think I would have been probably still maybe not playing international cricket now if I hadn't gone through some of the things I've been through. But yeah, it was a big step. For me, the off the field issues took precedence at that stage, and it kind of clouded my actual focus into actually playing. There were so many things going on off the field, and it took me at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years to actually settle down and realize, like, look, this is what it is. There are many things here that I can't change. We've got to accept it. If you want to play for West Indies, just come and play. But there's not much more we can fight for or do off the field because the system is just what it is. So the quicker I understood that, I think the better off for me. And I had a defining moment in my career where I was in the UAE against Pakistan, and pretty much before then, it was kind of inconsistency in my performances, and I felt under pressure because I was given, I wouldn't say an ultimatum from the selection panel, but I needed to get some performances under my belt, and that tour was defining because I felt as though if I didn't do well on that tour, I would have probably been stripped of the captaincy and probably been dropped as well. So it was good to see how I responded. I got a 5-wicket haul against Pakistan, which would be my first. I got some runs and some crucial partnerships, not big runs, but there were some crucial partnerships, and I didn't look too bad on the whole. So I felt from there on in now to this current stage has been an awesome journey, but it's just really from that moment on where I believe I understood, what I needed to do in order to be successful at this level.
If we go a bit deeper on captaincy specifically, apart from the obvious differences in the longer form and the shortest form of the game, what are the major challenges that you faced captaining tactically, pressure-wise, analysing opposition? Can we go a bit deeper and just what your mindset was as captain in both the test and one-day format and the challenges you faced?
I always felt the test team was easier to manage because we had pretty much a very young team. We were just basically rebuilding. The one-day team had a lot more experienced guys. I had people like Chris, Russells, the Samis, Bravo at some stage. And it's a lot more big egos to handle. For me, I try to have one style and not merely have two or different styles. But it was difficult, as I said, for more or less the off the field issues. And if you've got a leader in place, you want somebody who's strong and who you can rely on. For me, I had to show guys that they can rely on me, they can trust in me, and I would stand up for them, in whatever issues we may face. And a lot of the issues in West Indies cricket stem from off the field in the administrative side of things. And I felt as though I had a part to play being the captain, and that was part of the job. But I kind of lost focus on actually playing cricket because I got so caught up and consumed in the off the field issues. And it just got to a point where guys had to accept the terms, or just not play. And for me, that was just really where I wanted to go. It was hard to swallow because we still didn't feel as though certain things were going according to how we would want. But it is what it was, or is what it is. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, looking back on it, no, a lot of things have happened, man. It's hard to sit down here and just pinpoint one or two or such, but it has shown me a lot. It has grown me, and yeah, I don't think if I had to do it back over, I'd do it differently, to be honest.
And then 2015, you got your first Test century against England. Again, it must have given you a lot of confidence to get that first Test century alongside the great stuff you had done previously with the ball as well.
Yeah, I wasn't captain at that stage, but we had just come back from the World Cup, and I had a good World Cup with both bat and ball. I don't think I batted 3 or 4 times in the World Cup, and I was undismissed once. Sorry, no, I had 2 half centuries and a 40. Yeah, I think that was it. But yeah, I had some decent scores, and I got some wickets as well. We made it to the quarterfinal stage, which was a moral victory in a sense. Just more based on the fact that we've gone through so many things off the field in the recent past. But in 2015, when I played against England coming from the World Cup, I just felt as though I had the tools to get to do well and get a Test century. And Test century was something, obviously, as a kid growing up, you always dream of doing. The circumstances of the game was huge. I think Jimmy Anderson went past Sir Botham in that game as the highest wicket taker for England. So a lot of tension was there. I think Ian Bell got 100 in the first innings. I think Jermaine Blackwood got 100 in that first innings as well for us. And the second innings, we were basically staring at a defeat. We had, I think, in excess of 400 runs to score. And the last day, we needed probably about 300 big. And it was kind of impossible to get. But more or less, it was our game to lose, England's game to win. And we had to pretty much battle the entire day. And I got together with Dinesh Ramdin. We really put on a really good partnership. I enjoyed battling with Ramdin over the years, playing with him, because his energy is a good energy. He's very, very busy, and he gets the best out of me. And we put on a big partnership there. And then he fell, and then I was supported by Kemar Roach, and Kemar Roach was like a top order player, man. I always tell him that he is disappointing that he's got so much ability with the bat, and he hasn't scored at least a half century in Test cricket. I feel as though he's got the tools to score 100, and there's so many other bowlers who've had success with the bat, and he's yet to raise his bat in Test cricket. But I think his day will come, and I more or less feel as though when he gets a half century, he'll go on and get something really big. But yeah, I got together with him after the partnership with Dinesh, and he instilled some confidence in me that I didn't even know I had, man. And he got me through to the close of play. I think when he came to bat, we had like the last hour was about to start. So we had 15 overs definitely to bat, and we got through them over by over. And at the very end, I think Treadwell was bowling. I got my 100 off of Treadwell with a lofted shot over mid-off.
What does your training actually involve? Obviously, you're one of the best all-rounders in the world. You play across all formats. How do you manage to get your skill levels so high in both batting, bowling, and also you're a gun fielder as well? Fantastic slipper. Can you talk us through your training regimes and any tips again you can give youngsters perhaps watching this and how they would go about their training?
Yeah, again, like I'll narrow it down, or I'll kind of separate it into batting, bowling, and fielding. For me as a batter, I just try to think a lot about movement. I believe in getting into good positions. So for me, I'm a big guy. I'm a big person on start of your batting. Whereas I call it the trigger. And I believe if I start in a good position, I more or less would get myself into a good position to make a good decision. And that's just my mantra, to be fair. So I focus a lot on foot movement, a lot on body position, a lot on head position as well too. And those are just these three simple things. I'm not one of those guys who will say, well, I need to bat an hour to get myself in, or bat 15 balls. I don't like that, because I think that's more or less limiting myself. I like to look at just getting in a good position to make a good decision. Bowling for me has come a lot more natural than any other facet of the game, because I feel as though I could bowl a bad over, or bowl a bad spell, and still have time to come back and correct it, because that's how bowling goes. But for me, as I said before, skill is my main set. I don't have raw pace, so for me, I just have to rely on skill. So one of the things I always look to do, regardless of what state of the ball what state the ball is in, or what stage of the game I'm at, I always look to try to extract some kind of movement off the pitch in the air, because I feel as though it always keeps a batsman guessing. In limited overs cricket, your skill set and your accuracy just has to be on. And Jimmy Anderson, I remember we were playing against Jimmy at Lords when Jimmy got his 500th Test wicket, and it was one of the most amazing things for me. He was on 499 and I was batting with Devendra Bishu, and I just didn't want to be part of a highlight reel for the rest of my life. So I was saying to Bishu, man, I don't really want to be a part of that. So I was just watching him bowl a spell to Bishu, and he bowled out stringer after out stringer after out stringer. And then just in the back of my mind, I just telling myself, well, when is he going to bring back one? He just kept it going away all the time. I don't know if it was just he maybe didn't want Bishu as his 500 wicket, he wanted somebody else bigger, I don't know. But it was amazing. So I said to myself, if Jimmy Anderson is like one of the best in the world, and this is his mode of attack, like I've got to try to implement something like this. And then I heard, I watched a lot of Glenn McGrath, and he had a similar thing, just accuracy and consistency. Curly Ambers as well too, and I just built from there. So I just feel, limited overs format, you've just got to be really precise with your execution in terms of Yorkers, slower balls, and all different types of variation. So those are the things that I really focus on in limited overs. But when it comes to red ball cricket, it's just about movement. How can I get the ball to move? And that's just how I model my game. And then when it comes to fielding, I think it's a lot about balance. I'm very, very, very big on balance. So I can't take a catch if my head isn't still. That's the way I think. if my head is all over the place and moving, then I can never be still. So one of the main things I focus on is being very, very balanced, well, at the point of the shot being played, so that I can move laterally, if I can move forward and back, or if I have to dive, even if I have to dive, the only way I can pick up the ball is if I have a really still head as well too. So that's just one of the simplest things that I can really work, like, think about when while fielding.
And then 2017, you got your first fifer in ODI cricket against India. A word on India: currently they're ranked, at the time of this recording, #1 test team, #1 one-day side in the world. Do you think they're in terms of facing them, any international team, they're the hardest test for any team at present in the world?
They're an outstanding cricket team. I've had personal success against India, so I probably might not be the fairest person to ask, but they're definitely one of the best teams in the world for sure. If not, they are the best team. That's the best thing to say. They are the best team, but I guess some of their bowlers and batters fit well with my style of play, and it would always happen that way. You know, there are other players you would ask, and they would say, "Well, India's #1 for sure." I find their bowling attack to be the best bowling attack. Some people may say Australia. Some people may say South Africa. I think conditions have a lot to do with it, and how well you adapt to the conditions that you're playing in. So definitely Indian #1 side in the world for me, because I think all around when you look at them through all three formats, they're the most consistent side and probably the most dominant side. So they're definitely #1. But it always spurs me on to play against them, because I know that they're good, and to do well against them, you know, you obviously get viewed in a different way. You know, I think to be the best, you got to do it against the best, and that's what you really focus on.
And then 2019, you got that double century in a winning series against England at home. How was that as a special moment in your career to date so far?
Up there with the best. I mean, I'm kind of stuck in between the World T20 victory in 2016 and that moment. I mean, the only difference is on the World T20, I didn't play, you know, but even being a part of it to me was just something special and surreal, man. To see Carlos hit those 4 sixes in the last over, after I had told Ashley Nurse, who was on the sidelines with me, that, you know, I still think we can win it, seeing 19 runs off the last over and Stokes having to bowl to Carlos. So like that moment, and then scoring a double hundred in Barbados was remarkable, man. Like I never once imagined I would score a double hundred in Test cricket, and just purely because, no, I don't think I was incapable of doing it. It's just batting lower down in the order. I always felt as though you would run out to partner. This situation would not ever occur where you have that chance to do it, but it occurred in Barbados. And prior to that, I had a small tear on my right shoulder, so I didn't play in Bangladesh, and I hadn't played cricket for a little while. So I was now trying to work my way back into some kind of rhythm, you know. And I felt like garbage in the first innings, and I got caught on ball to Jimmy Anderson. But yeah, I just didn't feel right. And then in the second innings, I had to battle really hard in the first 35, 40 runs of my innings. I remember I came out to bat with like probably half an hour to half an hour was left in the play, and it was the moment for me. I told myself, once I got through this and then got through the first spell the next morning, then I could sit down on this attack. And Darch is at the next end with me, and you know, he's one of my closest buddies and best friends. So we knew that once we got through the evening period and come back the next morning for that first spell, we could have been sitting in a really good position. So yeah, the game was just perfect, man. Kumar got 5 in the first innings, Rosson got 8 in the second innings. You know, I got 2 wickets in the first innings with the double. And it was just one of those games where everything just went our way, you know, and one of those series that everything just went our way too. And it felt good knowing that it was against England. And I always dubbed England as our best or our biggest test series. So to do it against them was remarkable.
And you also, 2019, you came over to the UK to play for Northants county cricket. How was that as an experience? And how does playing in England differ from around the world? Obviously, as a batsman, facing seam swing, you're also bowling with a Duke ball. Can you explain as a player how it differs?
Yeah, the experience I had at Northants was exceptional. I'm one of those loyal players would like to hold one club and not be a club hopper. So I always tell my agent, like, if I get another opportunity to play county cricket, I must give Northants first priority, first option. Still stay in contact with David Ripley there, a few of the players who were there when I was there as well too. We still stay in touch. But it was a great experience, man. Playing in their conditions. It was the same year the World Cup, so I felt it would have been good preparation to go up there. I had 2 4-day games, and then I had about 8 one-day games. So I felt it would be really good prep going into the World Cup. But the conditions are great, man. It's something different. Obviously, you got to be a lot tighter for a lot longer because the jute ball does a bit pretty much all day long. So that was just really the planning for me. Like my thing was just really to test my skills to that point. It's more so on the batting front where, you know, your technique will be tested all day long in a 4-day game. In a 1-day game, the wickets were a lot better in terms for batting. So as a bowler, it was so hard because you had to be really precise with your execution, because slightly off and you were punished. So it was really, really good. It was one of the best experiences I had playing club cricket. I always say that Northants experience and then my Big Bash experience with Sydney Sixers were the 2 best domestic experiences I would have had. And yes, I've played APL cricket. Yes, I've played CPL cricket, but those 2 experiences can never be pushed aside. I think those are the 2 best experiences I would have had playing club cricket.
I know you touched on some bowling advice before, but if we could go a bit deeper on seam bowling, swing bowling, for you personally, is it more wrist position, grip in the way that you actually place the ball in your hand? How do you do things? Was it more your front arm? What do you do, and which has brought you success? And any advice again you can give youngsters perhaps watching this, aspiring swing and seam bowlers?
I think is a bit to do with it's a personal thing at some say. Some people like to hold the ball deep in the hand. Some people like to hold it light. Some people like to have a split grip. Some people like to have a close grip. So it's all a personal preference when it comes to the feel in your hand. But more or less the disciplines of swing bowling, or when I say the disciplines, like the technical aspect of it doesn't really change. You know, it's about understanding how the ball is meant to be held for it to outswing, how the ball is meant to be held for it to in swing, and then you have you could subtle adjustments that you can make personally to make it comfortable for you. But more or less, it's just understanding the conditions, understanding what you need to do, and just executing. And for me, I just focus a lot on seam. I think once I get my seam right, going in the direction I want it to go in, and then getting my body position consistent, then I feel the rest will take care of itself. So that's all I can simply say.
And then 2020, last year, you came over, the West Indies team came over to the UK in amongst the pandemic, the Black Lives Movement. Was that tour almost bigger than cricket?
Yes and no. It was bigger than cricket for me because it was at the period where the world was at a pause, and you know everybody was looking for an opening or the next glimmer of hope. You know, and yes, the Black Lives Matter movement was very very big, and is very very big at this present time still. But I felt more or less people needed that motivation to go on. I mean, with COVID and seeing so many loss of lives, loss of jobs, it was just like a period where everybody just felt stagnant, you know, and the world is slowly now starting to pick back up again. But us going over to England was so important because we gave people hope. Like, yes, COVID is probably rampant at that stage and it's stopped everything. But to see us push through it, you know, maybe give other people inspiration to push through and into what they're doing. Because COVID kept a lot of people at bay, kept a lot of people at home. So yeah, I felt it was bigger than cricket in a sense, but being the first series to be played after COVID was huge. First spectacle that any cricketing lover or fan was able to have, and us winning the series would have been even bigger because we were current holders of the division trophy, and I wanted to hold on to it. Winning the first test match was obviously the perfect start, but then I guess we were outplayed in the next 2. But I think all in all, it was a great series. We still felt we could have won the series, and I'm maybe happy tighten up a little bit more on the 4 of the second test match, which is where a lot of people felt we lost it. Maybe it would have been a different story. Would have been able to hold on for a draw, but I guess that's the way it was meant to be.
You were named one of the Wisdens Cricketers of the Year. You mentioned earlier that your best years, you believe, are still ahead of you. What are your short-term goals for the next 12 to 18 months?
My simple goal is to stay on the park in body ways. But no, it's a big year. It's a big year. I think the IPL for me is very important because I really still want to make a mark on that arena. These two test series that we have coming up against South Africa and Pakistan are really important as well for us. So look, my focus is purely there. CPL, Barbados Tridents, we won it 2 years ago, and I still believe that we've got a team now this year that we can definitely challenge again to win the competition. So that is at the forefront of my mind as well too. And then obviously the World Cup, the World T20, we're defending champions. So we've got all to play for. Everybody's coming to dethrone us. So we've got to really play some solid cricket. And seeing the way I've improved now and really caught back myself in T20 cricket, I think I've got a really big role to play within the team. And I believe I've got to really pull my weight and do it for the team. So yeah, looking forward to those couple of tournaments that I mentioned.
Jace, perfect. Thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and all the best for the months ahead. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. Pleasure being here.
So Neel Khagram, Cricket Life Stories, Jason Holder. Thank you.